record to the cloud. Welcome, everyone. We're going to have a demonstration today of the Weave Moss technology with Aaron and Eric. Eric, both of you guys have been instrumental in development of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to turn it over, let you guys start talking. I've played around with a little bit just to kind of get a sense of what it is. Mike has too. I'm sure we'll have some questions, but you can kind of assume that we really don't know much about it and what you're trying to do. So if you can kind of explain your concepts. Eric's muted, so I'm going to guess Aaron's going to start, but I'm sure you'll both have something to say. And take it away, guys.
Thank you, Stephen. And thanks for organizing, everyone. And I'm really excited to show this. Actually, I kind of want Eric to show it because I've been giving some demos and I'm very curious how he does it.
Hey, that's what I was going to say.
You get the practice tag team.
Yeah, well, I can just share with my perspective of why this is really profoundly cool. I mean, what you're about to see is still in really early stages of development. And so there's parts of it that you may look at and be like, oh, this is, rough around the edges or whatever you think. But what is underneath it is actually just totally a new set of technologies that combined make a new type of internet possible. And I've been working on the internet since I was a teenager. I grew up in San Francisco. And so I really got to see firsthand how the current regime of technology, internet technologies, transforms places. And the pattern with which it transforms places is similar to the pattern with which the technology is created and given to the world, which is that you have a person with a vision and an idea, and then they go and they raise money. They get the attention of an investor, and the investor gives them a big pile of money, and they use that pile of money to do two things. One is to get servers, which is a server is a computer that is somewhere on the earth. And they're expensive. They're expensive to own. They're expensive to run and operate. And then the other thing they do is they use that money to attract talent, programmers, people with slick ideas about how to manipulate people's attention. And in order to keep the game going, you do have to capture people's attention and funnel it into something that captures value, so that you can return that to the shareholders who funded the whole thing. And so that whole pattern of bringing technology to the world creates similar dynamics in the places where it happens. So you end up with, at least in San Francisco, nobody I know lives there anymore. Nobody I grew up with lives there anymore. It's entirely transformed. And to be quite honest, it's a lot like every other place that technology has touched now. A lot of what made it unique and beautiful and different from other places has been erased. And that is kind of how the internet works. And it's that you have a central source where you have to log in and submit your data to these people. And in order to access it, you either pay them money or you give them your attention, which is our most sacred and precious resource. And instead of using that attention to improve the world around us, I don't know about you guys, but it's easy to get sucked in and give our attention to things that really don't matter, don't enrich us, don't make the world come more alive. Holo chain, and what you're about to see is a complete work of art using these new technologies, which is, it's a completely different way of thinking about how the internet could work, which is we all have computers. We're all on pieces of technology, pieces of hardware. Why aren't those serving up the internet? Well, because that's not how the infrastructure is built. But there's nothing fundamentally different about my computer and a computer in Amazon's warehouse in Las Vegas. What's different is that the wires and connections and relationships between our computers are not built in such a way that we could just be talking to each other without Amazon and Jeff Bezos looking over our shoulder while we do it. What Holochain offers is a new way of connecting to one another and building a computational environment. That is, instead of logging into Zoom, giving Zoom our credentials, paying Zoom $20 a month, we have a video system where everybody in this room is treated as an equal, where we are all serving the internet to one another. And that's the basic idea in simple terms. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity that goes into it. And I'm curious to hear your spiel, Eric, and tell me how I did.
Well, it's always so hard to know where to start from because it depends on what are the questions that people want answered. And I think that's really where you all are coming from. And I have a little bit of background on you, but not a whole lot. I think you did fabulously, Aaron. Indeed, Holochain is an attempt to turn the relationships inside out that currently are embodied into the protocols that we're using. And I don't know how much, do you guys like the theory? Do you want to know how things are? Do you want to just see it working? Different people like it different way. And so we could jump in and then show things and then come back to theory, or I could go deeper in like philosophical grounding of like why it is the way it is. What kind of joy do you have in your learning processes? How does it work for you all here?
Well, I'm going to suggest anyone else can jump in quickly, since I know some people like myself have to get off at the top of the next hour. Is it possible for you to weave the theory into the demo as you talk and explain? I think that might be the most efficient way. And then I invite people to raise their hand if you have a burning question, like he's going to lose you if Eric keeps going. And if you can kind of wait and see if we can get, well, I don't know, we get through a whole demo, but obviously, and I've seen your Wii demo from a while ago, so I have a sense of how you might run it, but just let it rip, Eric. And I'm pretty sure you have a screen share abilities. Let me know if you don't.
Okay. Aaron, did you start a group?
No, I didn't. I was going to use the demo group or just show the group.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my, host disable participant sharing.
All right. I'm just going to do the old make you co-host and then you can share.
Okay. Oh, look at all those extra buttons that just showed up. Okay. So I'm going to share my, come on, where's my screen? Here it is. Okay. So this is my instance of Moss that's running.
Hold it. You know, I'm not, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I have it two screens. Is it, you guys seeing it? Oh, yeah, sorry. It's on my second screen. That's all.
Okay.
Yep,
we can see it.
Okay, great. So this is my instance of Moss that's running. And it should look a little bit familiar because one of the inspirations was, I think, some of the most interesting pieces of software that are out there in the current world, which is Discord, Slack, Mattermost. How many of you have used Discord, Slack, or Mattermost? Almost everybody? Okay, so you know that what you can do in Discord, Slack, and Mattermost is you can spin up a social context instantly with very low overhead. That is the magic of those pieces of software. Create a social context instantly. Well, so you see the same thing. You got a social context here. Here's Lightning Rod Labs. Here is the Holo Product Sync team. Here is a welcome to the Weave group. Here is my local community group. Here is a Weave tester group. Is this the one we want to use as our one, Aaron?
That would work.
Okay, great. So The thing that's different functionally about Moss and the Weave from Discord is that everything on the right-hand side of the screen is not just chat. So if I, for example, click on Lightning Rod Labs, I have a whole set of tools that we use in our group that you can install and add more tools in. And if I go here to, I'm going to go to the Weave tester group, you'll see I've got just a handful of tools that I've installed. I'm going to copy this invite new member link, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into the chat. So if any of you who are downloading stuff on the fly, you can go here, you can click on join group, and you can paste that link in. Don't click on the link, that won't work. Just paste the link in here that I pasted in. If you want to download stuff, you can go to the weave.social/moss and scroll down to the, oops, that one I should have turned into a link so you could click on it, sorry. And you can go and download the app and install it on your machine while we're talking. Okay. In the meantime, let's go here to the Weave tester group. So what I've got installed here is, oh, here's a fun one that's been installed. It's called Talking Stickies. This is a little application that does brainstorming. So you can do things like type in, oh, well, like here's the example that's already open here is a brainstorming board where you could go and add in cards about brainstorming. Let me go back here. So maybe I'll stop for a second. So already what you have is you've got a tool that lets you do brainstorming. Vines is a tool that lets you do chat, just like you would normally expect. And so you see topics and channels where you can do chit chat and whatnot. Slate is an application that lets you do drawing. So just like Miro, and you can add in whatever you might want to add in here. You know, the usual kind of thingies, text, etc. Presence is a video chat app that lets you enter you enter different rooms. You can create shared rooms or private rooms, and looks a lot like Jitsi or Google Meet, not like Zoom. It's not as powerful as Zoom, obviously, and it works well right now with a small number of people. It does not work with 10, 20, 30 people. Games is a little application for being able to arbitrarily create different games. These are all examples. The thing that's going on here, oh, maybe I'll show you what it looks like to install a new application. I'll go to add an applet. There is an applet library or a tool library, and I'm going to click this one here, which is notebooks, and I'm going to install it into the Weave tester group. And you will see what it looks like to install in a new application. Moink. I suddenly have it. This application is like Google Docs, or if any of you are technical and used HackMD, it's for collaborative editing of Markdown documents. So I can create a note, which would be notes from Cascadia group meeting. Right, and if anybody else is logged in here, did anybody else sign into this group yet?
I'm in the group, but what was the app you just downloaded?
Okay, so when you go
Notebooks.
if you click on the group, you don't go and download it, you go and join it. So click on the group here, you will see a thing that says joinable apps.
Uh-huh.
Because if you install an app, you're creating a new
Okay.
instance of that app, and you can create multiple instances of the same app or the same tool in the group, and it's often useful to do that. I'll explain why in a second.
Okay. Well, I'm in Weave Tester, and there's nothing listed under joinable apps.
Okay, well, Aaron is in here, so give it just a second and you should see it show up, because it does sometimes take a little while to synchronize. If you want to, you can go to your view menu and do force reload. Sometimes that helps, but usually it'll just take a little bit of time. It should show up under all the different apps that you can see. I'm surprised that you don't have a whole list of apps to join, because you should see all of these that you could join.
Yeah.
They should be showing up for you. For me, they don't show up as joinable because I've already
Oh,
joined.
there it is.
There
Okay,
you
notebooks has shown up.
Okay, great. So now you could take notes in here simultaneously while we're talking. You can see Aaron is typing. Type something, Aaron. There we go. So he's typing. So this is just like Google Docs. So this is the basics of what you can do. But there's something much more interesting about what happens when you create this kind of a framework for having applications rather than the current framework for having applications. The Weave is really not an application-centric point of system frame for being. Really, it's an asset-centric frame for working. So for example, this is actually, this is going to get me because notes is not the very best place. Here, let's while that's going on here, I'll show an example. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to board games, and I'm going to click on this world game. So this world game is just a game that I created. You can go create lots of different types of games in here. It's actually kind of fun. It's really useful for doing, you can use it for a lot of purposes, but basically when you create a game, what you do is you set up all the different types of pieces that there are, and you have a background image. So right out here, I have players or pieces, and I have no extra pieces that are added. But so I'm a player in here, and Aaron, you could join this game, and I'm going to just go put myself on a particular place. Inside this frame, because all of these apps are working together, in the same way that in your browser, all of your web pages are working together because they follow the same standard, you can create links between web pages by having a URL. You can do the same thing in here, but the links aren't to a web page, they're to a living resource. So, for example, I can say, I would like to link onto this page the notes file that we're currently working on. So what was that called? I'm going to go look for an attachment. It was called Cascadia. See if it finds it. Cascadia. Not finding it. Why is it taking a little while?
While we're waiting, you want to explain a little bit about the synchronization?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to. Let me go find out why that didn't work. That should have, that means I'm going to try that again. Okay, so the underlying technology, like what you're seeing right here, looks like a regular old, it's an application. It almost looks like a website where you would be getting data from a web server someplace. That's not what's actually happening here. What's happening is that every single one of these little tools that you see here, including the group itself, is a separate little micro network. And that network is connecting with only the other people who are playing the game. I'm using the word game in quotes here, which is that little social context. And so that means that Holochain is synchronizing with, in this case, let's go take a look at it. Oh, well, something looks like it happened on my computer because it's frozen. Let me do force reload and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know what happened on my computer. This is also why we had some problem there with the search, I believe. I'm going to restart this window pane because it looks like I got a nice little demo gremlin. Yeah, I'll try that back again. Let me restart Moss. I appreciate, Aaron, you gave the caveat that things actually do stop and give us troubles. We are in an early phase of development here. Let me try rerunning it. So I don't know if that answered the question. The thing here is normally with a standard with the web, the way the web is currently configured, you're going to one place and all the data is being pulled from that place to your web browser. That's not what's happening here. All the data is being shared by all of the machines that are playing that specific little game. So Holochain is a way of thinking about Holochain is that Holochain is, well, here's one of the spiels that I give, and I don't know how well this works for people, but the internet started with the creation of the internet protocol, the IP protocol. And that protocol did something really, really unusual. It made it be the case that for the first time in human history, you could send a message from one place on the planet to another place on the planet without a per message cost. That was the revolution of the internet. And the people who designed the internet protocol, I actually have met them and heard them talk about this. David P. Reed said that when he was in DARPA, in these meetings with DARPA, they were saying, well, wait a second, who's going to pay for that packet of data that goes from one place to the other? And he's like, don't worry, let that happen at the edges. Don't put that in the protocol. The previous protocols that did networking or global networking, which were the ones that were used by the airlines for sharing their reservation data, every packet was tracked and you paid per packet. Okay, so this is at the technical level, paying per packet. First time when we could send a message anywhere on the planet without paying per message. You have to pay your infrastructure cost, yes, but not per message. That ability did not get delivered to end users until the advent of email. Email was 3 protocols that were built on top of IP, a thing called RFC 822, which was a message format protocol, a thing called SMTP, which was a transport protocol delivering that, and a 4th thing called MIME types, which allowed you to be able to have pictures and know the kind of information that was in your message. Those 3 protocols were really critical, and they're what made all of us, they were the mother app of the internet. Because all of a sudden that value of sending something up with no per message cost became available to everybody. And it was the advent of email that allowed for the rise of AOL and all of those early internet service providers. How many of you used AOL or Genie? You guys are the like me, the gray hairs here, who actually ended up using those things. AOL, now here's the second step, right? Because I'm describing to you the process of the evolution of this stuff. AOL was a company that took that capacity and they added value around that capacity, enclosed value. That enclosed value was equivalent to the web. Do you remember AOL keywords? Where you could go and the chat rooms that you could grow there? They were like the web, but it was enclosed and owned by AOL. In fact, AOL got so rich, they thought they were a content company and they bought Time Warner. I don't know if you all remember when that happened. AOL bought Time Warner. It was that big of a reversal, but AOL went completely under because they did not recognize the arrival of a new protocol, a new open protocol that took that capacity and made that be something that was open that everyone could have. And that was the web, HTTP. So let me see, I got this back up again. Let me share my screen. We can go back to that.
Well, I'll mention that you could just,
yeah.
I was talking about the synchronization because the data because it isn't in a central location, data can take a little while to propagate across all the users. That's kind of what I wanted to point out is,
yeah. Oh, very
without getting
practical.
too deep, without going too deep in the weeds, but the responsiveness of some things can take a little while, especially as it's still being developed.
Yeah. Why is here we go. This is the window. I'm sorry, I'm not showing the one. Yeah, Paul, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks. I just wanted to kind of repeat back some of what I heard to make sure I'm actually understanding it. Yeah. And that is that, I mean, I grew up in the Apple II era of private BBSs and calling each other on phone lines to trade data. And so basically what I'm hearing is very similar, that you're basically running your own server and that you're sharing information with other people within a social instance, and that you're storing the data of the app on your computer, but it's being synchronized with everyone else's computer.
Yes.
through blockchain essentially, and
No,
that or something
not
like
through
that.
blockchain.
Yeah,
but
something else.
very
That's
close.
good.
Yes,
Yeah.
through
So
holochain.
yeah, through holochain.
Yeah.
So that's essentially, and then people can be invited into the social instance, and then they become part of the chain.
Yeah.
And then you can leave, and then you're no longer part of the chain. Is that how it
Yeah.
works? I'm just gonna okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to catch
So
that.
you got it. You're actually getting that very close to right. I want to just give you a little bit more detail on that to flesh that out a little bit. The reason why I gave that long story about IP and email, it might sound technical, but it's actually kind of important in that holochain is like IP. It is the ability to create small social contexts that people can join. Those things that you're calling a chain. It's really more like just think of it as a shared space. Think about it as a small game in which we agree to the rules of the game and we share data about each other's actions in that game. And so that game might be something like writing text. It might be something like sharing a message, sending messages back and forth. It might be something like making a drawing. There's rules to the game. It's a small social context. And so Holochain creates that ability to create these small social contexts where we agree to play by the rules and cooperatively hold each other's data and validate that we are each playing by the rules of that game. That's what makes it work. Like we're all looking and saying, oh yeah, when you did this move, when you added a new chat message, you did it according to the rules of what it means to add a chat message. You didn't throw in, some kind of other thing into this code, into that little space. What you are seeing here, Moss and the weave, is that second level. It's weaving together this capacity of holochain to create small little social spaces and turning it into social fabric, because social fabric is built out of thousands of small types of social agreement spaces that we have in the real world. In the human world, we know when we go to somebody's house, we act according to some social contract. When we're in a club, we act according to the social contract of that club. When we go to school, when we go to work, when we go to church, all these different contexts are small units of social agreement that we have. And when you weave those together, you get social fabric. And this is an attempt to do that in the digital realm. And here you're seeing it kind of in the place where we have teams working together, right? That's what I'm demonstrating here. But you could do it a lot of different ways. You could have a group that's all about playing games, not about teams writing documents or sharing text. Whatever the social context is, the idea behind Moss and the Weave is that you spin that up and you make that work, all those little pieces together. And only those people who are playing the game are necessary to play those sets of games. You don't have to disintermediate by having Facebook or Discord or anybody else like that at the center.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And is that a reasonable expansion on what you were saying?
It works
Yep.
for me.
And you're still using IP addresses essentially. Is that your?
We are using the part of the internet which is actually decentralized, which is the routing. So the main thing that the internet was designed to do was survive nuclear attacks and have decentralized routing and get messages from one place to another without having any centralized coordination. That was the big thing it was designed for. And the routing, the low-level IP protocols are quite decentralized. It's the web, the protocols of the World Wide Web, HTTP, that are not decentralized. Yeah, and I can get into a little bit more about why they became so deeply centralized. It's very similar to the story about AOL. AOL became such a centralized hub because the underlying protocol itself was not decentralized around content. The thing that the web does not do is it does not create a decentralized protocol for creating social contexts. HTTP is not about that. It's not about creating a decentralized frame for creating social context. And so that's what Facebook and Discord and all of these other websites do. Every single one of them creates a social context for you to log into, to have an identity. And they are an intermediary for the social context. It was great value. but it also has Pareto effects where you have those people who own the social context get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Holochain is a disintermediating protocol for the creation of social contexts. The Moss and the Weave is a frame for adding all of those little social contexts that are disintermediated, right? And being able to weave them together into something actually usable for end users. Okay, so what I was trying to demonstrate was the linkability of our app. So let's go try it again. I'm going back to the world here, and I'm going to click on, and we'll find out if this is a repeatable bug. I'm going to search for Cascadia. I have a feeling that our search is becoming non-scalable, and this is a problem, Aaron, right? I feel like that's part of the issue. All right, so I'm going to do this a different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let's take this a chat. Let's pretend that we have a chat here. And I'm going to create a new topic, and it's going to be the Cascadia chat. Whoop, Cascadia here, let me type. Okay. Here's the Cascadia chat. And Aaron, you might want to type something into here because you should have it there. Hi, folks. Okay. So in the Weave, one of the things that we define as part of the fabric of what is weavable together is an asset that is provided by a tool. So in the case of chat, a very typical asset is a chat thread. And so what you can do in any app that has defined an asset is, and the apps end up figuring out how they want to do this, is you can actually copy that link and you can copy it into what we've called the pocket. And the pocket is like your clipboard. So when I click right here on this search icon on the bottom left, it's going to show, it looks like Aaron typed something in here. It's going to show my pocket, and you're going to see that there's a bunch of things that I've already copied into my pocket, but down here is the Cascadia chat item. So you can see that it's in the pocket. I can go any other place in the Weave, any other app in the Weave, and where it creates a space to add links, you can add links for things that you have in your pocket. So here I'm going to open it up and I'm going to click on that Cascadia chat link. And now that has been linked in here as if this is a URL, just like you would in a regular document. But look what's going on. What's going on here is that the end users get to do that weaving. So when I click on that link, what does it do? It opens up that chat in a side panel, just that little thread. So this game, we could just keep talking here. And I'm like, yo, Aaron, how am I doing? Right. So you can see that the fabric of your tools gets woven in according to how you want to do it. And this would not be possible in the centralized world, because what you would be trying to do there is get all of these large businesses that have created their business model by enclosing the social context to agree with each other to share things. They do that, right? That's why you have all these things called integrations. But that's incredibly expensive and difficult to do. And you usually pay for integrations because that's where they gotcha. In the Weave, the integrations come for free. And not just for free, it's the basic fabric of what you're doing. You add the integrations in and use them as you want. So for example, this is also part of what is changing, what changes the economic model of how this all works, is that you guys as a group could say, you know, we really need something. We're playing this game, but we need it to have chat in it. And I can't afford to pay a developer to add chat. You didn't have to. But you could say we need some particular piece of capability. You pay a developer to build that little tool, and all of a sudden that can be mixed in with text documents, with any other type of thing that's already available to your that's available on the Weave because you can just install it. I'm going to try to do that search again because I'm very surprised that I can't do my search for this notes from Cascadia.
There it was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Dang it. All right, so this is something that's going to need a little bit of love. Oh, so there it is. There's the Cascadia group note. Did I end up copying that to my pocket? No, it didn't go in. It looks like I clicked away. We'll try again. Searching. Come on, do it. There it is. So I can add it to the pocket. Oh, I see what happened. It went in. Oh, if you just click on it, it opens it up in the side panel. But now I've added into the pocket. So I can go and link that any other place. So for example, in my talking stickies, if we had our brainstorming board, or maybe this is our Cascadia, we're doing a retro, or and I can do that. I'm going to create a new board and I'm going to add a sticky, and the sticky is going to have a link in it. Here's the notes from the Cascadia meeting. I'm going to save it, and it is embedded directly in the sticky. Here, it's easier to do it this way. Okay, I'm going to stop for a little bit and see what questions you all have, what's alive for you all in seeing this. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I can share again as soon as you want me to.
So I want you to show, people can ask questions before we go on if they have questions about what they saw, but I know Claire in particular, and I think Brandon would like the federation and the subsidiarity structures.
Aha, okay.
But I want to give Paul, you're not mute, you unmuted. Go ahead if you want to, before we start down a new little bit of path there.
Yeah.
I was mainly wondering, new social instance means a new pocket, I assume.
No, the pocket is your pocket. This is, see, this is part of what's incredible about this. Like right now, if you want to go and you want to search across your Trello boards and your Google Docs and your whatever it is that the web has centralized for you, you cannot do it. You have to go to each one of those. Here, you can search across all of your apps and all of your groups. So this is like when I went to my pocket, these things that you're seeing here, they are in different groups and different apps. And so it is agent-centric search across all of your social contexts. Other people couldn't search across your stuff, but you can because you're the person who's holding all this data. That's actually one of the big deals about what's different here.
And at some point, it might not be right now, I'd be really interested in sort of how a particular kind of social phenomena, like a wiki, for example, collective construction of data, how that functions across social contexts, in this new universe.
Yeah. Well, so the thing about the World Wide Web is that it's worldwide, and that's awesome. No social context. So the Wikipedia, there's no social context. The social context is managed by the app itself, right? And so there you have accounts and all the rest. This is starting from the other end. It's starting from the end of create your social context and keep everything inside the membrane of that social context. And I guess, Stephen, we could move on to the notion of federation so you can see how that works. This notion of federation is under a lot of development because right now it's actually too easy to federate. So I'm going to take this group right here. No, not this group. Let's see, which group do I have? So we have a Weave tester group. What other group do I have that I could use? I think actually I'm going to just spin up a new group right now because otherwise you get in trouble with this, with federation. I don't want to do it with groups that I have. So let me see. I'm going to create a group there. Okay, I'm just doing that one, and this is going to be called, I don't know, let's call it Cascadia.
Cascadia Fed Test.
Okay,
Oh,
we'll call
fed
it
test.
Cascadia Fed Test. Are you all still seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, because the Zoom stuff went away that would indicate that you're seeing my screen, so that's okay. Okay. So I'm creating Cascadia Fed Test, and I've got to set up my profile inside there because every group you can be a different person. So here I'll be Eric instead of Zippy. Okay. And so in the Weave tester, so here's the notion. The thing that we're trying to accomplish is the emergence and the evolution of groups in the natural way that groups actually do emerge and grow together. So let's pretend that the example that I like to use is you have a squash club that likes the people who like to play squash together. And they might have a calendar that they schedule their stuff together. They may have meeting minute notes. They may have whatever they want. And then all of a sudden there's another group out there, another squash club where they play squash and they want to set up a tournament. Well, the easiest thing to do is to have a calendar that you share between the two groups. That's the simplest way to start becoming a larger social organism than just the one squash club or the other squash club. So in our case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Weave tester group, and I'm going to take our Notes app right here, the Notebooks app. This is the one that we want to federate. I'm going to go federate this instance of Notebooks into the other app. So if I click into, the way you do that right now is you click on the little gear. Oh, look at that. Error. Let me try reloading. Error fetching the groups. What's going on? Try one more time. Just did a reload. Weave tester. Okay, there we go. I can click on this button, federate, and I can choose which group I want to federate it to. And I'm going to federate it to the Cascadia Fed Test. So this group is now, you can see it right now, this tool exists in both groups at the exact same time. So I come back here and I will see it in this space. And if you had joined the Cascadia Fed Test, here we go. Let me actually, for those of you who want to do it, I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. And I will paste that second link in so other people could join the Cascadia Fed Test group. You will also have the opportunity. Well, so if you had joined the Weave tester group, you already will have joined this app, so you'll be part of it. It exists in both spaces. This is a way of basically, remember what I said is that everything you see here, each little tool and also the groups themselves are small units of social context. They're a social contract, basically, of what to do together. And what we're saying by federation is we can take one of those small units and use it in both places. That's how larger social groups emerge. So for example, let's say you started federating and all of a sudden you have federated all the tools in one place and the other place. Well, literally you're the same group. So you might as well delete one of them because now everybody is in both places. What I will tell you is that currently that federation process has some problems. And the problems of them, the problems that is this is too simple. And the reason why it's too simple is because in the federated space, you actually probably want a different profile. You have a different kind of existence in the federated space than you do in the non-federated space. And we need to represent that in the system, and we're working on how to do that. So the way I like to think about that is in this small group, I got my t-shirt on and my, check jacket. When I go to the federation meeting, I might want to put on a different piece of clothes. I might want to actually not be wearing my pajamas or my t-shirt. And it's reasonable, right? As our contexts grow, we take on different personas and we show up in different ways. And that's a necessary thing to represent. in this kind of space. And so that is something that will actually end up getting embodied. Probably what will end up happening is that you will see on the left-hand side some kind of representation of the federation of two groups, so that you know that you are in a federated context, not just in a single group context. That's a pretty critical thing to have. Did
And
that?
then-
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because I want to squeeze another thing in before Claire leaves, so she doesn't have to catch it on the recording. If you get a chance, can you talk about forking?
Huh?
Can you talk about forking if you got a group too
Yeah.
big and want to split it?
Well, so one of the critical things that's built into this, into Holochain, is the notion that, and this is actually one of the ideas behind open source software as well, is that one of the key elements of evolution is the ability to take what you have and start from there in a different space. And so in the open source software movement, what you can do, it's a guarantee that you can take the code and change the code for your use case. But the problem is that for end users in a social context, it's not just the code that matters. What matters is also the data. And so this is another part of what Holochain brings to the table as an underlying level, is because the people who are playing in the social context also have the data from the social context available to them on their own machines. It is not intermediated. When they want to split and move to a new space, they can download the data that they themselves created, along with any other data that's visible to them, and then move to basically create a new social context and import that data in. There are currently, we don't have affordances in MOS for making that trivial or really, really easy. And we do want to add those in. What I can tell you is that, like, if I go here to notebooks, I can click on notes and I can export all the notes. And then I go open up a new social space, create notebooks, and then I import all the notes into there. So if one of you is a really bad player and we don't want to give you the key to the new one, we can all export all this data and we just don't tell you about it. We go to a new place and we've literally walked away from your bad behavior. That is one of the things that is afforded in this space, where there is not, you are not blocked from doing that on a technical basis. It's a key feature, I think, of the ability to do social evolution, where you can do so without violence. So that's some of the bigger theory behind it, and also an example of how it would be possible for one app, in this one case, in this one application. For some applications, it's much more difficult to do exporting of all things. That's on a per application basis, how that goes and how that's supported. But at least in the underlying level, it is not held by an intermediary who's holding that data, like Facebook or Amazon, which actually they make it difficult for you to pull your data out. Not easy.
Thank you, Claire.
Thanks for being here, Claire.
Thank you very much. This is great. Sorry, I've got to run.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Ah,
And a number of us have to leave right at the top of the hour.
We're looking at here. Oh, yeah. I want to, Aaron, you spoke to this because Penny asked in the chat, but so it's visible on the recording. And also, I think it's a bigger piece of the concept, because Penny asked how this was going to be incorporated into Hilo. And you pointed out a very critical piece is that MOS is a browser into the weave.
Right.
And I read the Happenings article, and I still missed that until I saw it right there in that message.
Yeah, the weave is the underlying space and the apps you've put into it. And in the future, there's no technical reason why we all need to use the same app. Right now, we do, but it's just because it's early and new. But my vision is that, you know, that ultimately, because of the composability of these spaces and apps that in the future, you could be using some browser and I could be using a different browser, and we can be in the same space together. That's to me, one of the most exciting potentials of this, because it represents another layer of disintermediating the power that arises when you make an app that's successful.
Yeah.
And for both, for both of these projects that I'm working on, the goal is the same, which is to return the internet to the people. Because it started out as Eric said, with a free protocol that liberated information from taxation, in a sense, or from the troll under the bridge trying to, get your money or eat you. And yeah, I don't know if that addresses your question, Stephen.
Well, so let me think of Paul, and you can either cut in or raise your hand again, so I don't use up all the last few minutes. But I'm still trying to get my own head around right now. Like there's Hilo that you're working with, Penny's managing Mighty Networks, and Brandon's building stuff with WordPress. And I'm thinking, okay, for 3 different groups, I've got to go to 3 different platforms.
Yep.
Right. And I'm still thinking like, okay, well, I'll go to Hilo for one group, Regenerate Cascadia, and then I'll go to Moss for the design school. But I'm actually hearing it's more finely, literally woven together. Like I build my own I build my own dashboard essentially from the networks. So I don't have to go, I can sit down on one screen and I can see all of the design school and I can see all of Regenerate Cascadia that I want to see. And I don't have to keep hopping between platforms to see what I want to see. Is that correct?
That's the dream. That's the dream. And the reason why we have to log into these different platforms is because they are physically separated places in real life. The servers are in different places and managed by different people. And so they all have their own sets of credentials. And so you have to log into Hilo because we use Heroku, which is served out of San Francisco. And you have to use Mighty Networks, which is served from Amazon, which is all over the, they have data centers all over the world. What the Weave does differently is that it says the space is composed of everyone in the room and the space that their computers occupy in physical space. Like, and so just, so instead of having different tabs going to different places in the world, Hilo in San Francisco and then Amazon and blah, 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 you have a single view that is just between everyone in the room. And you can add apps and functionality into that space instead of going to different places to get that functionality. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're going to be able to take Mighty Networks and stick it inside here easily.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? So we can't go and, I mean, we can actually do some pretty interesting things with sticking the current world, the current web inside here. Like we can actually embed web stuff like in the, because the technology allows some embedding, right? So we can do some interesting things that way, but the user accounts are not going to be able to pull the user accounts because we don't own the user accounts. That's the whole thing about Holochain, is that in the Holochain, there is no user account. You are, as the user, you are the actor who owns your own data. And so you automatically own the user account because you are the user account.
Yeah.
But that means we can't, we still can't pull that off on the Web2 world. But we can do something.
But that's not stopping us in a few months from, for instance, adding the ability for someone to, just like instead of having the browser in the tab in the browser Chrome, to put that tab into their Moss group. That is a thing that's totally on the table.
Yeah.
And so that would save a step and reduce cognitive overhead for like context shifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering about is thinking about transition, and luring people into this environment, and that there is it seems like a member of an instance could be a server, also. I mean, that the fact that it's a person is arbitrary, so, and that ultimately, though, you could, what I'm wondering is about if a social instance is producing something of value, like a public good, like information about a place or something, then they could serve that back to the World Wide Web and vice versa in the same way that you can. So that's what I'm wondering, is that interface, the interoperability between social instances being able to create public goods and then serve them in a way that is, managed, and how would that happen? Except by having,
You got it. So, so Holochain as an idea is a thing that Arthur Brock and I came up with to do and what we were trying to figure out is, if you want to have this kind of infrastructure, which is a public good and fully unowned, like is not funded by the kind of capital that Aaron was talking about, how do we do that? And we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to ride this wave of cryptocurrencies, and we're going to make a cryptocurrency called HOT that is a pre-sale for hosting, for basically creating web hosting on the cloud of Holochain applications connected to the current World Wide Web, a bridge between this Holo world, but the Holochain world and the current World Wide Web. And so that's what Holo is. Holo.host, if you go there, it is the business side of Holochain that could pay for the development of Holochain by virtue of issuing this currency, which would then later be able to be turned into the Holofuel currency that does exactly what you're talking about. And so one of the next things I want to build is the ability to drop a tool into your group, which is kind of like a dashboard, like your, what are they called? Squarespace, a dashboard where you drag the assets, the public goods that you're creating inside your space and making them visible on the web, because that one little tool is what you do Holo hosted and shows up on the web. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a business model. Your group will have to pay for that in Holofuel, and it makes sense, just like you'd have to pay Amazon or anybody to connect that up there, but it should be relatively cheap, and it serves as a membrane between these two spaces where you have full control and the space where you're just showing the inside of your organization to the outside world.
And there's other ways to do bridging, Paul. Like what we want to try with Hilo and experiment with is, for instance, one of the interesting things about how Holochain works is that if we're both in the space, the data is getting sent directly from my computer to your computer. And so there's, getting the space set up, there's a little bit of a time lag. And but once we're connected, I know you're there, I'm here, we can talk instantaneously. And so one of the bridges that we want to experiment with Hilo is that Hilo runs its own agent on behalf of the group to keep all the data. So when somebody logs in, Hilo is always online and shares whatever happened with you in the time that you were gone. Otherwise, I have to be online when you're online, and you share with me what you saw. And if somebody else comes online and they saw something that neither of us saw, that's when we get that data. So there's other ways to bridge, and they're all really interesting and exciting. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm sure after everyone goes to bed tonight, they'll wake up in the middle of the night with this. Oh.
Yeah.
I have a point, but it's not a question. So, as Stephen mentioned a little earlier, we both downloaded Moss. We just messaged back and forth over this last couple of days. But I created a group there called Cascadia Seed Guild, which is what I steward for Regenerate Cascadia. So what I'm thinking is it might be worth us, carrying on with that, and me, certainly in my case, looking at the recording of this again. In other words, create something within Regenerate Cascadia that could be like a pilot project. I mean, that's just my thought.
Yep.
Exactly what I was thinking. And Mike mentioned, because Eric and Aaron, I know it's the top of the hour if you have to go, but I'm supporting Mike in repurposing his Cascadia seed database, which is on a SQL database right now into something that runs on Holochain, with the idea that this could be propagated through all people, all the different communities managing seed banks.
Mhm.
Oh man. So
Yeah.
Mike, so there's an app that's in the work. Do you guys know Airtable?
Yes.
Has anybody here used Airtable?
Yeah.
So we have an app in the work called Water Table. It's current. Here, let me share my screen for a second. Again. All right. So it is not quite ready, but here is Water Table. And in Water Table, you can basically do the same thing the Airtable does. And
Okay.
you can add in fields and columns, and you can relate them, and you can pick data out of them, and you can do attachments, right? So I can take this table and I can copy it and add it to my pocket, and I can stick it in another place, right? So it's also the table itself is embeddable in some other context, so you can use that data there. My big use case for this is my garden. And
Yeah.
so my partner and I, we want to be tracking all of the things we plant and when we plant them and so on. So it seems to relate to that.
Totally.
It will be ready for being able to add in planting times and which varieties, and have a database that's related to another one. And so I hope that that might be able to fit your need and desire in the near future. This is actively being worked on by my team.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing. I'm sorry if I'm talking over anybody else, but that's exactly what we're doing on a fairly big scale. You know, we've got like 1,650 different varieties of seeds in that, and we're tracking everything to do with them.
Wow, that would be super cool. That's
Yeah.
really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Brad, I hear you've got your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lower the level of the conversation with my tech problems, but I was able to download the app. So let's say I want to join Mike's Seed Guild. How would I find that, or how would I?
He's got to send you the link.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what I did with Stephen. I installed Moss first, and I sent Stephen the link, and
it's important to know that the links, you have to copy and paste them for now. The server that coordinates that behind the scenes, you can't just click on it right now. In the future, you'll be able to.
And what did I do wrong to join? Because I downloaded the lightning rod link and I have the Moss, but I only have like 2 applets.
Yeah, you got to cut and paste the link, like the link Eric put in the chat.
You want to share your
join
screen?
a group. Brandon, you'll have to make Brad a co-host.
No, that's good. I think I can do it. I think I tried to paste it, but then I was pasting or I was cutting a link.
Yeah, share your screen and I can help you get it. If you can share your screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Oh, so you added in, somebody added in emergence. Okay, that's fun.
Well, I was trying to add. I thought I had to add things, but I guess I.
Well, you created a new tool. So click on emerge demo. Wait. No, not emerge demo. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, click on the Weave tester, right? Click there. Okay. Oh, it looks like somebody added all kinds of apps. Okay, good. So whoever added all of those into the Weave, wait a second. This is the Weave tester. Oh, that's right. It's me. I added all of those in because we have them disabled.
You could click join Slate, for instance, and that would open up that app. But right now you're in the group that is a general testing group rather than the Cascadia group that Zippy set up.
So I would be opening that into the group, into the testing group, not into the Cascadia.
Yeah.
You guys
And
are.
I think the second link that Eric posted is the correct one. You'd want to paste. You go to the icon in the top left and click join group and paste that link in there. And I got to head out, folks.
Gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
so
Cool.
blessed to be here. Please continue without me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Yep.
So Eric, if you had to look into the future, how stable is the developer environment, and sort of what do you anticipate over time in terms of third parties being able to create applets in this situation?
So the developer environment for Holochain itself is reasonably stable. Like we actually do a lot of care around that whole side of it. So building Holochain applications, that's quite stable. There are still breaking changes that are coming in. We're at the end of the 0.3 beta development cycle, and that should be stabilizing with the release candidate in the next month. I hope it looks like it's going to happen. And then we'll have a beta 3 out, which will be stable for quite a while. That side is very stable. So building a Holochain application, many people are doing it. Lots of different people are creating different types of applications for different contexts. Because a Holochain application, you can create it as a runtime by itself. You can add it to show up in the launcher and so on. The Weave is relatively new. And so all of the bells and whistles for the Weave, like being able to do the asset linking and being able to search across that stuff is not stable. But you can take your own Holochain application and you can drop it in just as is. It's like 5 minutes of coding to change a regular Holochain application to be able to be dropped into the Weave. It won't be able to do the asset linking and it won't be able to do the searching, but you can run it inside there. And then you can add in those pieces as they go and update them. So the answer to your question is it depends on how much integration you want with all of these cool features that the Weave provides. And yeah, it's early, but it's reasonable. As long as you're the kind, I mean, there are interesting, it's like my experience is that there are devs who won't touch anything that is out of beta and stable for a year. And there are devs who are like, give me everything that's brand new because I want to play. So it kind of depends on which developer you're talking about too.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Yes. Some people hate fixing and updating, and some people love doing it. It's like, oh yeah, no problem, I'm done.
Yeah, it's more the question of whether their client can afford it.
Absolutely, right.
Well, I should also jump off, but I really want to thank you for the sneak peek. This looks like a lot of fun.
It's really cool. That's my pleasure. I hope it's useful to you all in your thinking and playing. And please do get back to us if you have feedback and or if you want to start playing with things. And as you go, you'll notice there's that feedback tab. And we do look at that feedback tab. It is an issue. It is an instance of one of our applications, the Kanban board app. And so just pop things in there and we fix bugs and we're paying attention to that.
Yeah, no, I think that right now, I think the vast majority of activity is happening on a Telegram channel right now. So, I mean, I don't see a lot of challenges with shifting context and just being able to play. The question is, I think just that small transaction cost of downloading and installing a piece of software is enough to drive out 50 to 80% of potential users is my guess. And that's the challenge is that transition into something that's not like what I've always done. And that's how do we overcome and surmount that?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, it's the Weave doesn't and won't for a while have a phone app. Right. So there's a lot of value to having a phone app.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why it's difficult to have a phone app is because you're dealing with two things. You're dealing with the fact that you're paying for bandwidth on your phones. So that is enclosed. And so the whole thing about the way Holochain works is with gossip, the synchronizing the data back and forth, that has a cost that the phone companies also shut down. And there's issues with memory use and battery life because you're constantly doing that network work. And it's not just in one place. There's things we have to overcome, but we are overcoming that. We have a lot of work going on for making that be feasible.
This very much reminds me of our BBS days, you know, in terms of, but it's just, you can just link as many bulletin boards as you want with each other and they can play.
Yeah. CompuServe.
Eric, just one quick question. If you need to go, Paul,
Sure.
it's
No,
fine. But
go
Eric, I just want to say, like personally, I'm been driving for Uber for the last like 4 months. So like just kind of like understanding the app and stuff. I'm moving from Colorado to Bellingham, and I don't know many people there.
Yeah.
So like I just keep thinking like I like running errands, I like doing stuff, I like being in community. Bye, Paul. Like you know, if I could like network within people in like Bellingham and like you know, find people who need stuff done and I could fill that need. Like, you do, yeah. Do you see what I'm getting at? Like,
Yep. So what you're talking about is what I refer to and many people refer to as needs wants matching.
right.
Yeah. Needs wants matching is a thing that many people have written pieces of software to do needs wants matching, and almost all of them have failed. It's an incredibly tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
And there are reasons for that that I think have to do with social fabric. That if you go to like, I mean, you can literally go to a, I'm on one of these, a free cycle or a Craigslist type app for a local place. Like Craigslist is a great place to do that. But the thing about all those apps is that there isn't a lot of community there. It's a, it's like, it's very hard to see the emerging value that comes from that. And it's a really difficult nut to crack. And believe me, I've been thinking about this for a long time. But it's tricky. I don't know exactly how to do that. My hope is that this will create a social context where, because there isn't somebody who has to pay the web server costs, and because it isn't intermediated, that people will actually be able to start playing these kinds of games without some of the things that end up shutting those contexts down. It is interesting that you guys are using Mighty Networks. I don't know if you all remember this. Like Mike, you might remember that Mighty Networks came from Ning.
Yeah.
And Ning was incredible. Ning was what made transition towns and a bunch of things happen. They came into being because it was a place that you had a social context. You could organize your events and you could do pages and you could do this stuff. It was really awesome. Guess what? It stopped being awesome when they ran out of money.
Yeah.
And it turned into a for-pay project, and all of those groups shut down because they started having to pay somebody. Well, in this case with Moss, nobody has to pay anybody anything because we are collaboratively together creating the server infrastructure to hold that data. So it ends up being not a thing that is subject to takedown. So I think, like, I'm not answering your question directly, Brad, because it's a hard problem and it's a social problem as much as it is a technical problem.
Yeah.
And this is why I think the architecture matters. The architecture of the systems matter. And I do believe that we will come up with needs wants matching and something that actually does work. For me, one of the issues is you have to show like community radiance. You have to have that connected with something that makes it visible, the value that's being added by the work you're doing. And that it has to be real. It can't be like gamified fake stuff. So it's a little trick. It's a little tricky how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, like for example, I'm just thinking, you know, in the fall, I had a condo that wasn't being used for a few months. And my gosh, wouldn't it have been great for somebody up in Bellingham to come down and get some sun and hang out and have a free place and I'd get to know them, you know? But like, how am I going to advertise that? Like on couchsurfing.com and random, or, you know, like I want to be, you know, be collaborating with Penny and Joe and, you know, and know those people, and then remember when they're in my geographic area, and connect with them, and then,
it's an interesting problem, and I'm hoping that there will be people who will solve a lot of those little bits and pieces that can then be dropped into your group, right? That's part of the notion here, is the creating a framework in which adding these little bits of capacity is much, much, much easier to do and doesn't require you to set up a large company to manage the server space, make sure you implement all the little things, like you have to have commenting on this and you have to have the account management, you have to have all that stuff. No, you only have to do the little piece, which would be, oh, somebody's here in town, they send me a notification. Okay, that's the piece I'm adding in to my group. That's the idea behind it. We got a ways to go before it actually becomes fleshed out and works. But the whole point here is anybody adds one app and all of a sudden that's useful everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's the network effects that I think are on our side with this architecture.
Right. So if I wanted to say, and I got to go pick up my kid in a minute, but yeah, for example, if I wanted to say, I'm living in Bellingham in this neighborhood, my kids go to this school, then somebody can't come and pick their kid up that day and they can go ping, and then I go, oh, I can pick their kid up and bring them to my house and hang out with them for an hour until they get off,
Yeah.
I mean, like how, obviously I could do that with like a text message group with parents I know, there's sometimes when I need somebody else, but then I have to message this parent, hey, can you pick my kid up and drop them off at my house? And
Yeah. Well, you notice that this is a social problem, not a technical problem.
Yeah.
Because it's a question of trust.
Yeah.
It's a question of knowing who you are. I mean, you already found the technical solution. The thing that you actually need to work on is the social side of that.
mm-hmm.
That particular one is there's very complicated, but
Yeah.
there's room for having tools that actually make that be the case. How are you visible? How are you known in the group?
Right,
And
right.
and what's the group? What is your group? In long distance geographical stuff, also complicated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been really exciting. I read some of the Substack and I listened to a podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Eric.
You're very
really,
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. And
Nice,
My pleasure.
nice to see you, Mike and Penny.
yeah,
Okay.
always.
Take care, all.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions before I sign off?
No, I just make a comment here. I think one of the great glues, and I'm going to sound biased here, but it's because I've lived it. And I'm an old person. Is seeds, because everybody that wants to live has to eat food, and almost all food comes from seeds. Even meat comes from seeds. So that's something that I think about a lot. But I'm biased.
Thank you,
much.
Mike. I'm looking forward to seeing this and seeing how we can use the database app to help
Absolutely.
that work
Yeah,
for you. That's
very
very cool.
exciting. And thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah.